Uta Hagen here, in between a upstate New York tourist magazine with my magazine Graffiti, soon to go at, be placed probably out at Rockefeller Center Plaza, something like that. And I'm in between that and my actual uh, uh, little vase that I have with my asparagus fern that you saw before. I just kind of like the parallel here with this photograph on the magazine and my fern. And so that's what I wanted to start out with. Remember to stay connected with nature. And so I'm not always defacing public property by placing stickers, and especially not in the winter because when it's cold, the stickers won't stick. However, um, this act of civil disobedience of putting up small, rather modest stickers saying truthy statements, this particular civil disobedience I will justify because women who try to speak out and use our free speech to say that we want female biological women only sports teams so that we don't get hurt. We want to claim our identity as mother of our children without having our ex-husband legally claim that same identity, impersonating us, etc. So I'm just pointing out that there is that need for this sticker, civil disobedience. And yeah, there was someone in Madison, Wisconsin who some trans organization took her to court, and she won. They lost. She won. She had been stickering newspaper kiosks. Oh, yes. And you know what? You don't have to worry about taxpayer money being used to clean up something like a newspaper kiosk. If you feel very guilty about taxpayers' money going to clean up of light poles and things like that have stickers on them, which the socialists don't seem to be worried about at all. There were many socialist stickers where I was stickering on those light poles. If you are worried about taxpayer money and breaking the law, you can just slap them right onto some privately owned things like newspaper kiosks or advertising paper kiosks, all that kind of thing. There are all kinds of clever little places. As well as just put it on even the back of a magazine that you just cleverly leave in the doctor's office, something like that. We need to get the word out that the majority of Americans, of U.S. citizens, actually do not believe that you can change sex, because you can't. So, now, so that's dealing with the stickering sort of troll comment that I got. And then there was a comment where, a hand-wringing comment, which I actually did delete, from someone named Evelyn, or Evelyn, worrying about that I'm not using the proper protocols when I discuss trans orphans, the children whose fathers suddenly started cross-dressing and who are insisting that they be called Mama Rose or something. And so I'm not revealing the identities of any of them. I was doxxed, and my children were harassed, and I assume that they took care of it and sent their lawyer letters. I gave them that person's address because actually that address was public information. So the thing is, children like my sons, who are openly being very pro-trans and vilifying me and defaming me, although I still love them, you know, they are putting themselves out there in a certain way too. But I am absolutely protecting the identity of the young children. But the fact is, of the 34 children of us 54 trans widows who replied to my survey, 20 questions to ask a trans widow, of those 34 children, seven have had serious suicidal ideation, or actually four of those seven had suicide attempts and had to be hospitalized for a time. They're all recovered and well now. But in all of those seven cases, that cross-dressing father refused to even be involved in that recovery process. And the fact is, no one else is keeping data on these children. No one at those hospitals is taking note that these children have been traumatized by the psychological profession, who decides that they are going to quickly transition this father of children. Now, the other thing that I can say regarding my own ex-husband Nettie's very distracted behavior is that my older son was physically hurt in accidents twice because of Nettie's inattentiveness when my son was about 2 3/4 and 6. And so the psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists who are automatically affirming and who are automatically defaming us trans widows need to realize that there are physical dangers to the children of basically drug addicted, distracted parents. And that needs to be recorded. I'm the only one in the world who is recording it. And, recently I had to remove one of my profiles of a trans widow because she was so afraid that her kind of criminal ex, who did sexually assault her and stuff like that. There are 19 who were sexually assaulted, so I'm not, exposing anyone. But she was so afraid of him, and even though she was under a pseudonym and all this, of course, I removed it. And that's just how it is. Now, we have 3 more trans widows who have gotten the survey, 20 questions to ask a trans widow, from me, and I'm waiting, and then we'll have 57, and soon we'll have 60, and that's just how it's going to keep on doing as long as I'm able. Now, there's a new study which points out some issues. Yes, and this Evelyn complaint about how I'm not using protocols and stuff like that. So I'm bringing up this recent Finnish study from the European, it's called European Psychiatry, November 2023, and it's 66 in parentheses 1, which is like journal number 66 or something. And here, I'll just put this up here. I am not going to go through all the process of putting up the link, but you can find it under this. This is European Psychiatry, 66, parentheses 1, and that is pages 1 through 20. So these are Finnish researchers, Riitta Kerttu Kaltiala, Katinka Tuisku, and Timo Holtinen. Okay, and this was data from the gender treatment centers at Tampere and Helsinki University Hospitals. Those are the 2 gender identity clinics, or whatever they're called. What they found, they're looking at absolutely anonymous, nameless statistics, but they can do that in Scandinavia because they have socialized medicine, and so researchers can get approval, and then they can search under these type of things for these type of psychiatric illnesses. And they found that 2/3 of the adolescents had been treated for previous other mental illnesses involving anxiety, depression, and autism. So 2/3 of those who sought treatment for believing that they are trans, had sought uh, treatment for anxiety, depression, and autism. And these researchers were looking into data going way back to 1996 to 2019, through the Finnish Care Register for Hospital Care. And they categorized it in 5 year intervals, which they called index periods. The number of uh, gender or the number of cross sex ideating patients was 3,665. Then they compared them to a great number of age matched and hopefully sex matched controls, 8 each, and that's totaling 29,292 controls. And what they called the diagnosis was sex discordant gender identity. And oh, the English is really, really cute. I went through all of this on something like ResearchGate, and the English, the translation from the Finnish is really, really cute. And in Daily Signal, the article kind of translating this into lay language explains that some of them didn't do the hormones or surgery, but that means they went, right, to this gender clinic. But in Finland, they're a little more thorough with their diagnoses. And so they weren't automatically affirmed. And so some of them decided not to have these sex trait modification treatments involving either hormones or surgery or both. And one thing that I have to point out that is a serious flaw in this study is that because the trans lobby has insisted that in the records people be identified by their self-identified or self-named sex instead of their biological sex, it is unclear in this otherwise statistically significant study which sex these 3,665 patients actually were born. And so this is where the language doesn't make any sense. And this is kind of all over in these studies coming out of Scandinavia, which otherwise would be considered completely statistically significant. So it's up to these countries and the doctors to determine that you have to have the biological sex marker there, because otherwise, how are we going to assess whether these people are happy? Now, what they did was they examined whether in the records there were subsequent hospitalizations of the people who got the hormones and/or surgeries after they were supposedly happy and cured because they got their bodies modified to be the sex that in their mind they imagine that they are. And what they found was that no, they continue to have a much higher rate of inpatient hospitalization. And, that's usually because you're really, really in trouble. And you're either suicidal or you're very, very extremely involved with your mental breakdown. And one of the other problems with the language here coming out of Scandinavia is that it would be understood in Finland that this was a patient who got referred to a much higher, more intense level of psychiatric care because they have the basic care that is the basic doctors, and those doctors determined that that particular patient who had already had, been taking wrong sex hormones and or had these modification surgeries, was still having a very high level and intense level of psychiatric distress. And so this is a statistically significant study. The problem is that because of the way the records are kept, we actually can't say whether natal females are having more trouble or natal males who have done these modifications and been taking wrong sex hormones are having more trouble because we don't have the information of what was their actual biological sex. And but the proportion of people needing serious psychiatric treatment, so that's this much higher intense level, which we don't really have categorized in the same way in the US. It increased more. It was 52.9% compared to the almost 30,000 age-matched controls, which was 15% getting some kind of intense psychiatric treatment. So, and they also did not differentiate between only the hormones and hormones plus surgery. Now, most people who get surgeries also have the hormones, which is part of the problem because I think the hormones cause the thinking to become in disarray and to become disorganized. And so then the thinking process that steers that person to say, yes, I want a double mastectomy, or I want to have, them make a pouch inside my male pelvis that we will pretend is imitating a vagina, and we will pretend that it can enable me to have the kind of sex that I think my body should have, or something like that. So I will continue to give details about this new Finnish study as it comes out. It's the thing I think it actually points out more than anything else is that because the trans lobby, because the cross-sex ideology lobbyists insists that you will not say what the biological sex is, then we don't know who's in more trouble. And this is actually discriminating against females because the consensus anecdotally seems to be that these females who in adolescence or early adulthood think that they don't like being female, which may very well just be a process of the pubertal normal changes of female puberty, then we can't tell what's happening with the girls. So probably this sounded almost as unclear as the gobbledygook that comes out of, say, Dr. Richard Rachel Levine's mouth. But I'm just reporting to you as I collect the info. Stay with your nature observations. Be well always, and enjoy the festivals of light.